Within Bitcoin, there is a common distributed asset ledger, the blockchain. What that is like a big book that contains all of the transactions that have happened on the network. And that distributed asset ledger allows the entire network to arrive at consensus as to what the current ownership of Bitcoin is. I like to think of it a bit like the network layer protocol, like Internet Protocol, IPv4. It provides a neutral and transparent way for transferring value from one owner to another owner in a way that's accepted by everyone in the network. Very importantly, the only two participants in a Bitcoin transaction are the sender and the recipient. There is no third party. There is no counterparty. In finance, that has some very important implications. A lot of the structures we have in finance around fraud prevention, the overheads, the fees, the charges, all of those things have to do with managing counterparty risk. When you use a credit card, part of the fee you're paying, the biggest part of the fee, is for fraud prevention and for the risk of chargeback that you introduce through the counterparty to the merchant. The merchant doesn't know that they're going to get their money. They get a promise that maybe Visa might give them the money. And this applies across the entire financial system. Our financial system is riddled with counterparties because that's the legal solution to solving counterparty risk. Bitcoin, for the first time, enables financial transactions that have no counterparties, where it is entirely peer-to-peer, so one sender can send to one recipient. Once you encode that transaction in the blockchain, that is irrevocably redeemable. What do I mean by irrevocably redeemable? It means that as long as you can produce the necessary encumbrance, the necessary proof that you own the keys, you can redeem that transaction, and no one can stop you. And in fact, the fact that it's on the blockchain has immediately made that transaction redeemable by the owner. Done. And from that moment on, there is no risk that you cannot redeem that transaction, as long as the network continues to exist. Bitcoin also, for the first time, converts money or asset ownership into a content type. A Bitcoin transaction is about 350 bytes of information. I can write it in hex on a napkin. I can hand it to someone to type in a computer in Kuala Lumpur, and when it hits the blockchain, I have executed that transaction. I could transmit it over shortwave radio to a listening station in burst mode, and no one can stop me from doing it. You cannot stop money that is information, because in order to stop money that is information, you have to shut down every means of information transfer on the planet, and you can't do that anymore. So stopping Bitcoin actually involves shutting down the internet. As of a couple of months ago, some groups are now working to introduce a fully indexed blockchain node on a satellite. So you can put a Bitcoin node in space. Good luck shutting that down. The Bitcoin network only requires two nodes to be communicating the blockchain among each other and mining, and it survives. So you would have to eradicate it everywhere simultaneously and ensure it never comes back. There's one other form of species on our planet that operates like that, and it's a virus. And we're not very good at eradicating those either. So when I hear about the idea that governments will stomp on Bitcoin and shut it down, I find that highly amusing. Because it's very similar to the idea that governments can now stop the internet. They can't. And Bitcoin is just an internet application and can be stopped even less. The biggest difference? There's an economic incentive, a $10 billion economic incentive from all of us who are invested in the Bitcoin network to ensure that that never happens. So I truly believe that Bitcoin is absolutely unstoppable from external perspectives today. Now, that doesn't mean that Bitcoin will survive. It means that if we fuck it up, it will fail from the inside. There are certain failure modes that Bitcoin could exhibit today. Probably the most serious is a bug that allows someone to subvert the elliptic curve digital signature algorithm in a way that's not noticed for a long time. And if that's done effectively, then you wouldn't know who owns what, and you wouldn't be able to make sure that a transaction was executed by the actual holder of the keys. if there was a fundamental bug in the way ECDSA was implemented on Bitcoin, that could crash Bitcoin. Then what happens? The very next morning, we start again with Bitcoin 2. And we implement a better digital signature algorithm. And all of us get a chance to be back on the system on the ground level. We can now mine on CPUs again. Difficulty 1. And if you have already understood what Bitcoin can do and you bought into this idea, you'd want to be on Bitcoin too. So one of the things I talk about, which I think is really important to understand, is that Bitcoin, the network, and Bitcoin, the invention of cryptocurrency, the invention of a distributed asset ledger based on proof of work consensus, will survive Bitcoin, the currency. If Bitcoin, the currency, goes away tomorrow, the invention has not been uninvented.